The time has come and so have I. It's finally here, the Umbrella Josefina Renoir video. And I'm not overly impressed if I'm being honest. Here's a quick rundown. Where I and most people were excited for Annie and imagined she would be busted, our expectations were much more tempered with Umbrella. And good thing they were, for her kit feels lackluster. For sure, it's got more utility compared to Annie, having more recovery modes and a permakill tool. But that's it, her usefulness is still fairly limited regardless. Most specials and blockbusters have mediocre effects, the exception being Slurp and Slide having a decent armor break effect. Otherwise, a lot of these serve as combo extenders, but if you know anything about this game, just large combos won't cut it in the long run. The hunger gimmick is an interesting concept. It can alternate between satiated, overstuffed for extra damage, or ravenous for extra speed. And it's altered by either using bubbles to hasten towards ravenous, or throws for overstuffed. Due to Umbrella's noticeably low movement speed, ravenous is the ideal choice, so that she can land her hits with better accuracy. Outside of affecting a few moves like Hunger and Rush, or Under the Weather, Hunger is usually reserved for signature abilities. As for the new debuff she introduced, Slime is an alternative to Curse, except arguably not as efficient. I won't deny it's inherently satisfying to melt down grudge painwheels with it and so on. But in the long run, preventing a buff outdoes causing damage while still allowing it to be gained. It would be cool if used defensively, but it also needs to be much more oppressive. 4% per buff is not a lot of health lost. Marquee wise, it's average and fairly easy to classify. Sweet Victory is literally robocopies and rage per kill for some extra snowballing, while Bitter End grants final stand and heavy regeneration when under 25%. Of course, the former is best profited for offense, while the latter works best for defense. They're not overly remarkable, but it could have been much worse. Finally, for a commentary on the prestige, it's adequate. When hitting attacking opponents, it heals for 5% and inflicts slime for up to 15 seconds. It's nothing major and it's pretty much a weaker leech, which could have justified higher recovery for a single hit. So overall, Umbrella's kit is definitely combo oriented, and that is valid on its own right, but outside of fancy combo chains, she has very average tools to take care of the opponent, her best asset being self-recovery. It's likely above Annie's kit, but it also feels gimmickier because of the hunger meter. Salty got a lot of flack early on due to her ability requiring Enrage in order to start inflicting 10-second bleeds, and said bleeds only apply on throws. And her main method of gaining Enrage is to drop below 35%. Not good, but much like anything that makes use of Enrages for extra effects, she can use supports to enable her ability, while skipping this aspect. Rerun, inner pieces, you know the drill by now. Additionally, Sweet Victory further helps her out in enabling the bleeds. As for how to inflict them constantly, you just use Salt Grinder, simple as. Even with these workarounds and positives, she doesn't do much of note. She works for early game, but so does Bad Hair Day.
Hey, it's not my fault. Book the kid with the keyboard.
Fresh Air is surprisingly one of the more basic variants released in a while, only having disabled blockbusters on dash attacks and gaining 50% meter if the opponent's blockbusters are disabled. And that's it really. She controls meter fine for a bronze and that's about it. There's not much mystery or depth to her. Again, passable for early game as meter controller and for tier 3 prevention, but it's likely she falls off relevancy fast. I don't know man, there really isn't much to say about her. What, did you want me to fucking expand this to 10 minutes?
It don't matter. None of this matters.
Rose Tinted easily climbs the ladder by having good support on defense and even offense. She grants both Barrier and Thorns to any teammate that lost 25% HP, leading to a potential snowball of reflect damage, if not taken care of with Curse or constant buff removal. Granted, this alone makes her an annoyance, but not necessarily a top tier defender. Killjoy syndrome if you will, but there's more to it, for she clears all debuffs in the team every 20 seconds, meaning the team can stay clear of Curse and bleeds most of the time. As a result, this can also provide very occasional offense support niches. It's interesting to notice how she copied the one support element that mattered the most from Model Leader. By the way, start getting used to these comparisons. It's gonna be a recurring theme from here on in.
Oh fuck, she got us there guys. Well,
Puddle Pirate is Summer Salt made of silver variant. See, I told ya. That already should give her plenty of positives, right? Well, not right off the bat. It's true that her puddles remove enemy buffs, therefore giving her instant utility. But the key difference lies in the core gimmick at hand. Generating puddles is nowhere near as fast as dropping tears with Parasol, always needing the use of specials or blockbusters. Thus, she underperforms compared to the diamond variant. I mean, as it should be. She also recovers 5% HP for each buff the opponent loses, but only while not ravenous, which is a downside. Regardless, Puddle still works fine since the buff removal is always inherently useful, but don't expect the same proficiency as Somersault.
The dolphins are upon us.
Candy Crusher comes off as a faster version of Flight Trap, and likely is the only variant to benefit out of Overstuffed. While in this state, she gains timeless regeneration every 3 seconds, removed on knockdown, and at 3 stacks she gains permanent haste. In terms of recovery, she's arguably one of the better picks, and has fast mirror gain to boot, but her utility is a little limited, provided she has one niche in Rift battles, that being a don't poke the bear counter. Since she has average attack and most of her moves are multi-hit grabs, this spec with the constant healing gives her a lot of positives going in. However, she's also limited on the lack of buff control, making catalysts such as Final Fight much more annoying. All of this, and the odds of being paired with other bothersome catalysts or variants, bumps Candy Crusher down a few points, but she's mostly viable, especially on single nodes.
This whole situation has just turned his whole life upside down face.
While Child is redundant, all her throws possess health recovery, which is good, but 2 of Umbrella's throws already have recovery to them. You could think of it as additional recovery, and that's great and all, but you also need to even out with being below overstuffed. Otherwise you won't be able to recover through the ability. That means you want both throws and moves that spend hunger for her, just so both bodies balance each other out. Also, she inflicts slime on knockdown, and it kind of exists. Same as the recovery, it's present in most of Umbrella's pre-existing assets. Overall really basic and with decent attack, but also unremarkable.
It doesn't matter what you think!
Tidal Traveler is more on the mediocre side, where she gains immunity while near a puddle, and can deal 50% extra damage and inflict armor break while benefiting from it. On bubble attacks. The immunity itself is obviously a nice trait, but having to constantly remain nearby a puddle is a big detriment. As for the constant armor break, it would definitely be nice if it wasn't exclusively tied to bubbles. As is currently, it's functional but far more situational. To her credit, it's likely she works with supports such as Sketchy and Surgeon General, but you're not getting your money's worth out of some extra damage and occasional armor break. On the defensive side, I don't know about you, but does she look capable of any defense save for Frost Armor compatibility?
You gonna fucking cry, you pussy?
It's been a long while since we got a new Doom variant, and Space Case fills that role with average results. While Ravenous, she inflicts a 15-second permanent Doom if the opponent's HP drops down to 50%, but it's removed on death or if Umbrella attacks out. The conditions are fairly generous and not difficult to meet. However, same as with Xenomorph, resistance is by far her biggest obstacle, so accuracy is advised. For a fun strategy, be sure to pair her with Thrill Shrieker, so that it easily cuts down to the 50% threshold. The 5 stacks of precision and buffs based on element are a fine bonus, but generally don't go further than that. Being element based already conditions what you'll get, but Umbrella being a multi-hit character with very few single hit moves makes precision not the most suited for her. Regardless, fine variant, but nothing special either, especially considering Doom fell out of relevancy a long while ago.
Nice shot there, Brickout.
Wunderkind is an interesting case of a variant, where she's both an attacker and often support, but not in the way you might think she works. Her ability takes inspiration from Freeze Frame, where you can inflict 15-second power surge through bubbles, and up to 3 stacks it removes HP equivalent to her total attack, as well as removing 50% blockbuster meter. It's functional, although it forces moves like Under the Weather or Projection Lens, and standalone she'd be likely unremarkable to underwhelming. However, she seems to double down as a support, since her ability also works while she's in the bench. This makes other Power Surge users, like most Robo Fortunes, capable of making use of Wunderkind's ability, and it could double down for defensive use. Still, all of this is mostly a gimmick more than anything, and we don't even know if it's getting patched or not. You may find success with it, but it's also based on Power Surge, a debuff rarely useful on offense, so consider her wisely.
Press 1 in chat if you don't know this trick, because you're extremely valid.
Reigning Champ is a rather conflicting defender. She has the same stats as Shitting Mimage, as well as 2 pre-installed stacks of permanent armor. Already this forces some form of piercing, or alternatively take out her teammates first, as she loses the armor that way. But once you do either of those things, she devolves to a mediocre stall that, at most, will filter new players but gets destroyed by veterans. Luckily, she has something more than just armor, support properties, by granting her teammates 10-second final stand and haste every 20 seconds. However, similar to the previous one, this ability may prove annoying to newcomers, but once tools like buff removal or curse are readily available, it becomes way less difficult. So yeah, unfortunately, reigning Chump only looks overpowered in concept, and she might be to the lesser experienced, but it's ultimately an easy to bypass hurdle.
Somebody give this idiot a tuna fish or something.
Hands down, Igor Deceiver is the best out of the Umbrella lineup, and she's a mix of Jin Freeze, Overclocked and Feathered Edges. Much like Jin, she can convert buffs to permanent enrage, and has better odds than her at 50%. She needs to be on Ravenous for it to work, which if she carries healing grabs, it may take some time to get out of satiated. But how does she get any buffs by herself? Through well-timed blocks, she gains one stack of Barrier, Blessing and Precision. Barrier definitely is the more useful, since you can take a certain amount of reflex safely, while Blessing is on the more situational side as emergency revival. Precision is more questionable since it's a singular stack on a multi-hit character. It's possible to combo Slurp and Slide right after Tongue Twister to profit the precision, but if you were to be on Ravenous, you risk losing the stack. All in all, Igor is on the better side of Umbrellas with outstanding damage and some mild utility, even though I would advise either Jin or Overclock before her, depending on whatever you may need.
Referee's gonna come up with a shotgun, put it up his ass and go
FBI